Welcome to the Chaos Sector. I am Darvian. In today's episode, we focus on the January 6th Commission. It's so obvious, just another political soap opera used to deflect from the rigged election of 2020. The majority of the American people couldn't care less about this so-called investigation. With gas prices soaring, food shortages, utility bills flying through the roof, Americans have no interests in this nonsense. In fact, this is another reason it was created. They know that Americans will not show interest, and they can get away with wasting time on this investigation rather than focusing on the American people's needs at this moment. Has there been another round of stimulus checks in the Biden administration? Negative. The previous stimulus checks of 2021 were from the previous administration, Trump's $2,000 check proposal that had already made its way through Congress before the election. The Biden administration has not disbursed another round of stimulus checks. The $600 and then $1,400 payments in 2021 were actually from the previous Trump administration, which was for $2,000. Biden simply split the payment, cunningly making it appear he passed it. So in approximately 2 years, Biden has not given the American people another stimulus check, despite all of the problems the nation is facing economically. If states are disbursing stimulus checks to their residents, there sure hasn't been actual evidence to prove this. If it is authentic, you have to jump through endless loops to receive money, which isn't even worth it when it's said and done. The states are far more stingier than the federal government, so good luck with that. I wanted to put things into perspective of what the American people care about. But this January 6th hearing is important, as there is a ton of severe consequences for this circus act. Zirin, I know you hate politics, so I give you the floor on this charade.
My pleasure. This shit is outrageous. The January 6th Commission is about deflecting from the global pandemic, the rigged election, trying to stop Trump in 2024, distract from the terrible job Grandpa Joe has done up to this point, and ultimately, protect the truth about how Democrats conspired with the black community to get Biden into office. This investigation will fall on its face, just like the impeachment attempts years prior. The fact that Adam Schiff is crawling around in this madness should give an indicator of a conspiracy. This fucker is one of the most corrupt individuals in government. It was Schiff who pushed the Russia collusion narrative along with Wicked Witch Hillary Clinton and a drawn-out, bogus Mueller report. All of that time and money spent on that investigation and no evidence of collusion nor an impeachment. The hypocrisy of the left. Hillary claims Trump cheated in the 2016 presidential election, which resulted in an investigation. But the left does not accept that Trump can have the same belief about the 2020 election? I guess what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. Speaking of Hillary, this person literally committed perjury in front of the nation during the Benghazi hearings. Adam Schiff questioned Hillary, but it was obviously partisan. In the real world, Hillary Clinton would have been charged with perjury, and then of course digging into the issue at hand, the documents and emails she destroyed on her private server. Obviously, it's extremely important to the Benghazi attacks. In essence, it is suggested that Hillary Clinton had prior knowledge about an attack, which leads to even more severe charges against her. DOJ James Comey protected her, and Adam Schiff, a Secretary of Defense in the Obama administration, has thousands of emails destroyed? And when questioned about them, no substantial answer to why. They weren't just deleted in a trash bin, they were literally erased from the server's memory. Which means they can never be retrieved by tech specialists. This is not just suspicious, it's an indicator there was a crime or knowledge of a crime in those emails. But of course, she's still slithering around today unscathed. Now Schiff has come back around, but this time working with Lizard Cheney to attack Trump once more. Nobody who was so-called arrested on that day was charged with domestic terrorism. But the FBI claimed that the attacks were, quote, rooted in white supremacy. So you have white supremacist domestic terrorists, yet none of them were charged with terrorism? And of course, we have allegations of how the Capitol Hill authorities were literally opening doors for the so-called insurrectionists into the deeper quarters of the building. The mainstream media and their so-called fact-checkers attempted to debunk those claims as false. But there are several videos, photos, and even statements from the so-called insurrectionists who claim they did in fact let them, or a better term, escorted them, through the building. Which obviously means the so-called insurrectionists themselves were hired to attack the building. This was reported from another news source in the darkest hour. How long can they avoid the elephant in the room? There have also been claims that Nancy Pelosi was behind this so-called attack. Which means every person depicted as a Trump-supporting white supremacist and domestic terrorist was actually a Democrat, or more detrimental, a liberal Democrat. Loudmouth is called that for a reason, because even Trump stated the attack on Capitol Hill was a insurrection hoax. As mentioned prior about disinfo agents, Donald Trump is also one. Think of him as Alex Jones if he were a politician. And of course, Trump is very fond of Jones. Birds of a feather. Now if we are talking evidence, and not speculation or so-called testimonies, Trump and his daughter, Ivanka, did tweet out about not causing violence on that day. That has merit in a court setting, because if Trump was demanding no violence, how could he have provoked it as well? Speculation is not evidence in court, such as claiming it was reverse psychology Trump used. The evidence, which will be a part of Trump's legal team defense, is that very tweet on that day. Trump's statements are on a loudspeaker, meaning the American people hear him loud and clear. So it's a battle of lies versus truth, and the people have to decide who's telling the truth and who's lying. The American people will not be convinced by some random deputy's testimony, or some Capitol Hill officer, or some media puppet. Criminals, liars, weak cowards, have no problem raising their hands and vow to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help them God. And literally sit there and flat out lie in front of everyone. In fact, all of them are not credible without any evidence being presented in the hearing, such as phone calls, text messages, or documents that prove any of their so-called accounts proving Trump was the antagonist on January 6th. Testimonies have no proof, no evidence, it's just a statement given, that's all. But if you combine this testimony with actual evidence, then the testimony has merit. Otherwise, in this hearing specifically, is just a bunch of random individuals rounded up, used as quote, perceptive evidence against Trump. It will come back to what the so-called attack was originating from, and that's the election. So we are in the future past, where everything is unfolding linked to 2024. The hearing is preventive measures by the Democrats, they are literally dead in the water come 2024. Instead of focusing on generating another Democratic candidate for president in 2024, they spent the entire time of Grandpa Joe's term attacking Trump. And Grandpa Joe being endorsed and chosen by fellow Democrats was suicidal anyway, so it's much more revealing that something was suspicious, leading up to the 2020 presidential election. The truth? Fake Trump supporters used to create the very reason for the January 6th commission. Hopefully we're on the same page here. This only shows the American people how obsessed Democrats are with Donald Trump. The left-wing media rushed to display Ivanka Trump, who stated that she believed the election was not stolen. Yet, this same Ivanka did tell her father to pursue an investigation into election fraud prior. Ivanka is the daughter of Loudmouth. Do you honestly think she is going against the father who paved the way for her success in life? And it's her fucking father, she would not betray him for maniacs in the Democratic Party. She simply stays neutral, not emphatically giving the media a firm stance on the issue. As she should, she has to protect her business ventures outside of the political madhouse, and also, although an adult with her own success, never bite the hand that fed her. Global tyranny, the pandemic was created as a smokescreen for the 2020 election, which was then rigged in Biden's favor. Why? Because if Trump got re-elected, this would mean non-white citizens voted for him, which would mean that racism is all one big hoax. That cannot be exposed, because it contradicts and reshapes every element of race and racism in America, including United States history and world history. That has to be protected by any means necessary, so no holds bar. Yes, and to distract the American people from this consensus, a pandemic was created, which directly affected the lives of all people. But the virus has essentially faded away, and now it's time to face the consequences of your crimes. What crimes do we have here? The biggest one is treason. This treason was committed by the biggest traitors in the federal government, so-called Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky, then politicians and both political parties, then mainstream media, and also, the American people who decided to carry out the agenda. It comes down to those who have the power, the people. But the people are weak and cowardly, they don't accept their birthright, which is defending and protecting the integrity of their country. This is known as being a patriot. So in conclusion, the January 6th commission will result in nothing more than months of garbage. The strategy is to bring charges against Trump for the so-called attacks on Capitol Hill. But didn't this already happen? Didn't the previous impeachment crusade fail at doing so? If they couldn't impeach Trump on the very reason they have the commission investigation right now, what makes you think anything will change? Translation? Hey Americans, we are exposed like an open wound, but we'll throw salt all over that shit, because we are fucking masochists. They know it's going nowhere, but what other choice do they have? It's over. We will break down key moments of the bogus hearing to show how pathetic these traitors are. This is the chaos sector.